Name me one. For the last 5,000 years of history. You name me one. Kinky-haired people who ever set up camp in North Africa in these lands above.
Go lay down. Yeah, yeah. Go lay down.
Tell us that, right? Herodotus tells us that.
Name me one.
He says the Ethiopians and the Garamantes are indigenous to North Africa, and that, of course, the Phoenicians and the Greeks are not.
Lay down.
But he makes it very clear that people he called Ethiopians are indigenous to North Africa, and Northwest Africa in particular.
Egypt, Libya, Algeria.
Indigenous to North Africa.
Oh my God! Morocco, Algeria. Name one black people in the last 5,000 years who set up camp here or around here, the Levant, the Near East, Turkey, Egypt, anywhere around here, you know what I'm saying? Anywhere around here or across North Africa, name one.
The Ethiopians and the Garamantes are indigenous to North Africa.
If you want to debate that, you'll be truly exposed.
Anywhere around here or across North Africa, name one in 5,000 years.
I am a black Egyptian. My father is much darker than I am. My mother is lighter than I am.
Name one.
The ancient Egyptian civilization was a black civilization, and ancient Egyptians were black according to the Greek scholars and the Roman scholars. Ancient Egypt became white only in the 19th century and in the 20th century.
Go lay down. Yeah, yeah.
The archaeologists often refer to, and I've been there, to connections between ancient Egyptian culture and the Sumerian culture and the Crete culture and the Persian culture. Yet when you visit Egypt, especially around Aswan in the southern part of the Nile, you see mostly black people.
I was chilling and laying down in bed. My pajamas on. I was chilling and laying down in bed, so my pajamas on. I was chilling and laying down in bed. Okay, so just let me get it right.
We know from the anthropological evidence that the people just predating the dynastic civilization in the Nabta Playa region were black African people.
The Nile River or Nile Valley River, I was chilling and laying down in bed, is because they were able to travel up and down the Nile by boat. From the first cataract up into the Mediterranean Sea. My pajamas on.
This idea, this sort of continually trying to find this idea of, separating out North Africa from sub-Saharan, as if the Sahara was the impermeable boundary that nobody could get through, is really a continually problematic type of argument. Particularly since we have early texts that tell us that, right, Herodotus tells us that. He says the Ethiopians and the Garamantes are indigenous to North Africa, and that, of course, the Phoenicians and the Greeks are not.
See, in Sudan, it's not considered a river civilization because they can't travel up and down from all them cataracts, the 6 cataracts to the first cataract like that, because there's shallow waters, there's rocks, and there's they call, is it a waterfall? Waterfalls.
Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. I know that you're gonna have it.
Also, a lot of Nubian evidence in Egypt. So on the screen you can see a list of sites where there is some Nubian evidence from the earliest phases of Egyptian culture, or from the earliest phases of the Egyptian timeline, I should say, so the pre-dynastic period through to the beginning of the New Kingdom.
My pajamas on.
And so this demonstrates that the first cataract wasn't actually a barrier to Nubian culture getting into Egypt, that the boundary was quite fluid and permeable. And it shows us also that these Nubian cultures were a long part of the Egyptian social and cultural landscape, so that they can't really be separated out in this sort of Egypt and Nubia way that we tend to do
Turkey, Egypt, anywhere around here, you know what I'm saying? Anywhere around here.
You name me one.
Or across North Africa.
Whatever. The question is, what does the head of the Sphinx look
We
like?
need to understand how light the people were, how dark the people were, how they represented themselves. I would encourage all of you to look at the so-called mannequin of Tutankhamun from his tomb and look at the dark skin color that's used for his own face. An understanding of ethnicity from the Egyptian side, certainly without all of the complications of chattel slavery from Africa and a much more white versus black, literally, understanding of power and in economy and colonialism. But if I have to pick a race, whatever that is, or an ethnicity of the ancient Egyptians, I would call them people of color. And for an American audience, I would say that if they were in Alabama in 1955, they would have had to sit at the back of the bus.
Oh my God!
Since they were black, it makes sense to make a sculpture in their
North
image.
Africa isn't white, right?
Like a painter who paints his god in his image, the Egyptians made the Sphinx to theirs. It is hard to imagine white Egyptians making a sculpture of their god or their king with a Negro profile.
There's no white people running around in ancient Egypt. It's just not a category that they used. They did recognize people had blackness, black skins, and they recognized dark skin tones, but the idea of the white is a gender category or a category used for people who are cold burned in the very far
Amongst
north.
other things, these black people had a very sophisticated understanding of astronomy.
It looks like that. There's suggestions of that in the ancient site of Nabta Playa and elsewhere.
Or around here, the Levant, the Near East, Turkey, Egypt.
Herodotus says that Colchon was a colony of the Egyptian because they had black skin and curly hair.
And if you want to debate that, you'll be truly exposed.
Aristotle will say precisely Agan Melanes to designate the Egyptian and the Ethiopians, which mean excessively black in Greek.
Controversial question, and that is, are modern Egyptians mostly the same as the ancient Egyptians? And if not, why?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, I don't think so.